Welcome to Mesa's Place. Today's story comes from when I was a kid, back when baseball was just about the biggest thing in my life. It's a story about my friends, a rival team, and a baseball that wasn't quite what it seemed. So let's take a step back in time. This was a time before Arizona ever had a major league club. Yes, friends, this really makes me feel old. My dad raised me just to love the game itself, to admire the greats who played it so skillfully. He would tell me stories from games that he had seen growing up. Sometimes we would catch old broadcasts together, cheering like they were live. We would talk about everything: plays, stats, what made one player legendary and another a cautionary tale. Pretty big conversations for a 7-year-old kid, but that's how I first learned about Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Jackie Robinson, right up to modern heroes like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, my dad's favorite, Bobby Bonds. I imagine myself out there with them, chasing fly balls and sliding into home to win the big game. That's the power of stories. They don't just tell us about our heroes. They let us dream about becoming one ourselves. So my dad signed me up for Little League, and by 4th grade, I had a new team to play for, the Diamondbacks. Now, we weren't the real Major League team, just the Little League version, but wearing that purple and turquoise jersey on a wide stretch of green in the middle of a brown desert, it felt like an oasis. It felt like belonging, like we were a part of America's pastime. And then in 1998, Arizona got its own Major League team. And the name they chose? The Diamondbacks. Now, we knew they didn't actually get it from us, but it sure felt that way. Like the big leagues had peeked into our sandlot and said, "Yeah, that's a name worth carrying." We laughed about it, as proud as could be. Every time I pulled on my jersey, I felt like I was part of something bigger. I'll never forget those late nights at the new ballpark. Fireworks lighting up the desert sky, the mix of grass, dirt, gunpowder, and rain in the air. For the first time, we weren't just kids playing a game. We were part of Arizona's story. And maybe that's the best part of any game, how it brings people together. Families, friends, even whole towns can share one story under the same sky. Of course, every team has a rival. Ours, the Copperheads. They were from the other side of town, and they always seemed out to get us, like they were jealous or something. Anyway, 2002 is where today's story begins. That was the day Mickey Ricky showed up with a baseball he swore was signed by Randy Johnson himself, thanking Mickey for a tip on his fastball. We were tossing the ball around before practice, just me, Good Cat, and our buddy Ollie. The desert sun was high, and the field was buzzing with cleats and gloves snapping leather from the Copperheads finishing their practice. And then 2 long shadows stretched across the grass. Mickey strutted across the field like he owned it, chest out, arms swinging wide. Right behind him was Mac, big, quiet, always carrying too much. This time it was 2 bats slung over his shoulders like tree trunks. But Mickey wasn't here to play ball. He was here to brag and make a sale. He held up the baseball in a plastic case, cleared his throat, and read out loud for everyone to hear. "Thanks for the idea on the new pitch, Ricky. I'll use it soon. Signed by Randy Johnson." Gasps. Kids crowded around like he had brought the Holy Grail to practice. And then he said it. "For the right price, this could be yours." And that was the hook. He wasn't just showing off, he was dangling bait. Some wide-eyed kid could have emptied his allowance on that ball, sure that it was the deal of a lifetime. That's why me, Good Cat, and Ollie stepped in. Not to embarrass Mickey, but to help the younger kids. Remind them that sometimes our excitement can cloud our judgment. Mickey grinned. "That's right, Randy Johnson himself signed it when he was with the Mariners. He thanked me for the idea, my pitch. Probably the one he used to take out the bird in last year's World Series." Now, every Arizona fan knew that story, the famous pitch that hit a bird in mid-flight. The Copperheads nodded, wide-eyed. Some of my teammates leaned closer, but I wasn't buying it. Something about that ball and Mickey's story didn't sit right. I pushed through the crowd for a closer look. Mickey held the ball high, smirking like he had just won the lottery, but something wasn't adding up. Can you figure out what we noticed? First, the ink was too fresh, too bold. A real autograph fades over time. If this was really signed when Randy Johnson was with the Mariners, that was over 10 years ago. Second, the handwriting. I've seen Randy Johnson's signature before. Coach Ramirez had one in his scrapbook. The J in Johnson always dipped low and sharp. On Mickey's ball, it curled and looped, like someone trying too hard to copy it. Third, the inscription. Baseball players don't write essays across a baseball. A name, maybe a number, but that's it. And the biggest clue? Common sense. If this ball was so valuable, why bring it to practice? Out in the dirt where it could get scuffed, cracked, or stolen. Nobody waves around treasure on a sandlot, you invite them back to your house. But the most obvious clue? I looked Mickey in the eyes and asked, so if Johnson was with the Mariners back then, you're saying that he thanked you for a pitch idea when you were, 5 years old? You expect us to believe that he got pitching tips from a kindergartner? Good Cat leaned in, cool as ever, and added, history doesn't usually come with that new maca smell. The crowd chuckled. Mickey's smirk faltered, and a final crack in the story came. Mickey was sweating, scrambling for excuses and shifting from foot to foot. That's when Mac jumped in. He puffed his chest out, pointed his thumb at himself, and said in a loud voice for all to hear, I saw him sign it and give it to Mickey. Silence. Then laughter rolled across the dugout like thunder. Not to be cruel, but because sometimes the truth shows up so clearly it just bursts out of you. Good Cat shook his head and said, funny, Mac. Randy Johnson wasn't at practice yesterday. And that was it. The forgery collapsed. Mickey turned red as the Diamondbacks' new home jersey, gripping the ball like it might turn back time. And that day taught me something. Extraordinary stories can spark our imaginations, and they deserve to be heard. But when a story is being used to get something from you, that's when it's important to pause, ask questions, and think carefully. If the pieces don't fit, it's okay to say so politely, and to explain your reasons with kindness. That's how we separate fact from fiction. Not by putting people down, but by using our minds and our hearts together. It's like my great-aunt Gertrude always used to say, if it smells funny, don't eat it. Turns out that works for stories too. Because in the end, the truth has a way of shining through. Thank you for coming to Mesa's Place and spending some time with me, friends. If you enjoyed this story and want more, be sure to subscribe to Mesa's Place. There are stories to spark your imagination, songs to lift your spirits, and even a few mysteries and campfire chills along the way. So come back, bring your curiosity, and let's explore together. Because the more we practice listening, wondering, and thinking, the better we get at solving life's little mysteries and writing our own stories too.